Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi. Another garland. Hare Krishna. You're still here. Fantastic. Continuing. This is now part 11. Yeah, part 11. We've been really going. Part 11. Now this is going to be a little different. And there's a reason for it. The Pandavas retire timely is a nice chapter. And it's certainly in relation to the overall topic, Hari Dwara, because the Pandavas, we know where the Pandavas go. They go to the abode of Hari. And the method or the procedure is within this chapter 15, where they retire to is the spiritual world. That's nice retirement, huh? Now, the compliments of Radhakrishna Prabhu, there was a question that some little bit refined answer was called for, that is, the distinction between compassion and magnanimity. Whose question was that? Compassion and magnanimity. That was your question? Really? Well, here's help from Mr. Dictionary. I'll just read. Magnanimous refers to a broader sense of generosity, forgiveness, nobility, magnanimity, unprovoked generosity, and kindness and forgiveness and all those nice things. Magnanimous, disproportionate, special. And charity for those persons who are in need, to extend a helping hand or funds or something to people who are in need. So that's at least a connotation of charitable. Magnanimous is broader. So that's a little bit from today, earlier today. Now, chapter 15, the Pandavas retire timely, chronologically, because the Bhagavatam is not chronological. There's just a distinction between the Itihasas and Puranas is, one of them is, the Itihasas, those histories, are generally speaking chronological. One, next, chronologically. And the Bhagavatam doesn't follow that rule. It's, different rules that the Bhagavatam follows or a Purana follows, and it's not, chronology is not one of the rules. However, the chronology of the Pandavas retire timely comes chronologically after Yudhishthira has this premonition. Yudhishthira is very intelligent and intuitive and so forth. And he has a sense Krishna is going to depart. So he sends Arjuna, go check it out. What's Krishna's plan? What's the next plan? I have this, he didn't say, but he had a feeling Krishna's going to leave. So Arjuna went. And sure enough, the plan of Krishna's leaving was, the premonition was correct. And so he's come back after Krishna left, smashed, that his life and soul is now gone. And he's a great hero, and he's crying because his life and soul is taken. So, and Yudhisthira has an appropriate response. This is towards the end of this chapter, is that they retire. That they retire means they go back to Godhead. But so the way Mahabharata narrates and the way the Bhagavatam narrates differ. So get used to it, because there's differences. And the way the Bhagavatam narrates is the intelligent elder brother, Yudhisthira, concludes Kali Yuga is going to begin. And be in this world absent our life and soul, my life and soul, I don't want to be without him, and I don't want to be around as things deteriorate because he's no longer around. So he decides to go to the North Country, goes to the Himalayas. That's partly why we're having this topic in our series of discussions. And he heads for the North Country, head for the Himalayas, and he doesn't come back. And then there's other things that happen towards the end of this chapter 15, which I'm not going to dwell on, but just touch on. Draupadi, she understands, and she does what she does. She's not going to go to the North Country. She's Draupadi, but she worships the personality of Godhead in a deity form and goes back to Godhead. And that was her method. And Yudhisthira had his method. It doesn't, in this chapter, doesn't give much discussion about the others other than saying, and they similarly attained the spiritual abode. Because the Pandavas are eternal associates. They're not posts that different people can occupy, become a real good bhakta, and you can become Arjuna. They're the eternal relationship, eternal entities in eternal sangha. And they manifest and not manifest as Krishna manifests and not manifest in different ways. Mahabharata narrates differently, worth mentioning. Of course, there's Mahabharata type of details and further details, but again, it's the elder brother, Yudhisthira, decides it's time. We saw that image, they're trekking through the mountains. And Draupadi is with them. It's unlike in Srimad Bhagavatam. Draupadi doesn't go with Yudhisthira. He goes alone, and he doesn't even say Hari Bol. He just goes, and she understands. So the Pandavas together, minus Bhima, because Bhima has already departed. The circumstances I'm not familiar with. There's probably some circumstances where he decided, I'm going, and just he went. So Yudhisthira took the other Pandavas, and Draupadi wanted to come along, and so she went, and they're traveling through the Himalayas, and according to Mahabharata, they attained heaven. Doesn't have the same depiction of destination nor how the procedures happen, but this is Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15. Here's a little bit of the structure. And we're not going to spend much time on the final part. The Pandavas, Draupadi, and Vidura also retire. Retire means they go back to Godhead. Now, Vidura, he's in a unique position compared to the Pandavas, and his unique position is his position before he became Vidura, to assist Krishna in his pastimes. He had a different position than the spiritual world, and he goes back to that position, according to the Bhagavatam. So here's the section. There's a series of verses. Arjuna's feeling smashed, separation, devastated. And then after going deeply into that mood, he remembers large section. It's 11 verses, remembering how Krishna was very kind to him and protected him, and everything that was wonderful in his life was from Krishna. And then again, sadness without Krishna, the sense of emptiness, and intimate exchanges. And so it's rasa, meaning the way that rasa is described sometimes is it's like waves in a river or waves in an ocean. And sometimes the water, same water, it's rising. It's the same water as now falling, and it's rising and falling. That the emotion of one who is in prema bhakti, it's not under their control. The waves move, and they move with the waves of their transcendental attachment to Krishna. And there's reminiscence of being with him, and then feeling separation from him, and feeling connected to him, and it keeps changing. So then Krishna gave instructions, and he's remembering the instructions because instructions give strength. And then the last section we're going to be covering is, because it goes, this is verse number 44, but it's like 70 slides. So we're starting with Arjuna has returned. He had an assignment from his elder brother Yudhishthira. Go find out what's the plan. What's next? What's Krishna going to do? So a lot of this is going to be just reading, quickie on the chapter. So it's Sutta speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya. Arjuna, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, was grief-stricken because of his strong feeling of separation. Rasa, meeting separation, and separation now. Over and above Maharaj Yudhishthira's speculative inquiries. So he's come back, and how's this, how's that, how's the other? And Arjuna he can't speak. He's emotionally grieving. So as the painting illustrates, due to grief, Arjuna's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore, his body lost all luster. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord in this mood of intense separation, he could hardly utter a word in reply. Relationship has all these components, including the mood of separation, because in ultimate sense there's no separation, because Krishna doesn't really leave. It's a pastime in which it appears that Krishna has left. So he's not visible to his eyes. There's a very nice commentary. Maybe at the end of this, when our time together is over, you want to go back and read this chapter, because it's rasa filled. With great difficulty, Arjuna checked his tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him. So love and separation is intense. And the feelings of love intensify, and as the feelings of love intensify, the emotions intensify overall. So the painting or this illustration is meant to show Krishna as the chariot driver, Krishna with Arjuna and different. So he's remembering all these circumstances. Remembering Lord Krishna and his well wishes, benefactions, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. So that this is an old illustration. In the background, there's Subhadra and Draupadi, and there's Krishna and Arjuna lounging together, and it's, very familiar. Now, here's another artificial intelligence kind of drawing. Krishna has a nice effulgence, and Arjuna is by his side. And Arjuna understands who Krishna is. Here's another illustration, rather than going through all the details, because this is going to take a long time to cover this chapter. Sudama, Brahman, is down center. And I don't know what all these other little images are. Krishna's meeting one king, Krishna's meeting another king, and they're being cordial, and I don't know who the artist was intending to depict. If you want to guess, you can go ahead and guess. But back to what's very clear. There's Arjuna with his Gandiva bow, his arrow, a quiver of arrows on his back. Yudhishthira has this image of what he's thinking also. O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. Arjuna was able to accomplish superhuman beyond, to the amazement of the demigods, because they're also superhuman. To their amazement, he was able to accomplish. To his surprise, he was able to accomplish. But it was all arranged by Krishna. Krishna made it happen. And Arjuna was the instrument through whom he made things happen. I have just lost him, whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavorable and void, like bodies without life. So that's the end of that little section, and that the depiction is Desolation Row. Looks like dead trees and poor Arjuna. For everyone, just commentary, for everyone, the most dear is the Supreme Lord. And Arjuna is intimately connected with the Supreme Lord, and he's feeling that emotion and feeling the separation from Krishna, and it's intense. So now comes another section in the remembrances of the special favors Krishna gave and special protection that Krishna gave. So we all know the pastime. There's getting the hand of Draupadi. I mean, the image is not so good. It shows the fish in the water, but it's the reflection of the fish in the water. And the whole, a rotating disc up on the ceiling, and there's a hole in the rotating disc, and there's a fish on the other side of that hole, and he's supposed to shoot through the hole by just looking at the reflection in the water that's rippling, and impossible. Only by his merciful strength I was able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupada for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow, I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. So a celebrated event, and of course Arjuna was honored But the honored one is honoring the one who gave him that ability, and he's not in any illusion about where the ability came from that others couldn't accomplish. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradev. Now that's his father. And the son defeated the father, along with his demigod associates, and thus enabled the fire god. There's a nice image, the fire god, that's Agni, devouring the Pandava forest. We heard this narration, no harm to repeat the narration. Agni had a problem. Even in the heavenly realm, there's problems, right? Don't think there's no problems. There's always. So he had indigestion from so many yagyas and people pouring ghee into the yagya fire, and indigestion, too much ghee. I need some medicine. And then this Pandava forest that have been bestowed upon you by Duryodhana, there's herbs and there's this and that, and you can cure my disease. So I want to devour those herbs. But when I do, Indra pours rain. So I can't get over my indigestion. Help. Can you help? We ask Arjuna for help. He's gonna help. So Arjuna side by side with Krishna, Arjuna with his bow, Krishna with his Sudarshan chakra, they enabled Agni. They're up. You see up on the upper left. That's Indra pouring torrential rain, and Agni is looking. Oh no! So as by their arrows they protected Agni, so that Agni could devour the Pandava forest, and arrows and so many arrows that Indra couldn't penetrate, and so many other things happened. And there were Rakshasas and Pandavas and other creatures in the forest, and as they were escaping, Arjuna was instructed by Krishna to slay them. And Krishna also, with the Sudarshan chakra, slayed them. But one managed to get Arjuna's protection, Mayadanava, and this is the result. Mayadanava built Indraprastha. Only by his grace, Krishna's grace, was the demon Maya saved from the blazing Pandava forest. No, it was Maya took shelter of Arjuna. And when Maya took shelter of Arjuna, and Arjuna made a request on behalf of Maya, don't kill him. So Krishna stopped. He was happy that he took shelter of his devotee. You know the story. So what did Mayadanava was so grateful, I want to reciprocate, please take some favor from me. And Arjuna said, no, I don't protect people because I want some favor. That's bribery, that's business, we don't do that. So thanks, but no thanks. And Krishna said, accept his offer. He can build you, not you, build a palace for your brother. And the Pandavas and your wife and your mother and everybody will have a nice place. Have him build it. So he built it. And there's a depiction of what he built in the Prastha. There's outside and there's an image of what's inside, and by Krishna's grace, all of this was done because Krishna instructed Arjuna to instruct Mayadanava to make Indraprastha. Your respectable younger brother, who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants, killed by his grace Jarasandha, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. These kings had been brought for sacrifice in Jarasandha's Mahabhairava Yagya, but they were thus released. Later, they paid tribute to your majesty. So the your majesty is Yudhisthira. So your younger brother, that's Bhima. And here's Bhima bifurcating Jarasandha. And as a result, many kings that were going to be sacrificed in his yajna were very indebted. And after their release, they paid tribute to Yudhisthira. So Yudhisthira has some grace coming through Arjuna to Krishna, or to Yudhisthira, through Krishna empowering Yudhisthira and Bhima to do stuff. Then it was only he who loosened the hair of all the wives of the miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely, this is Arjuna speaking to his brother, saying, your queen, but it's his queen too, which had been dressed nicely and sanctified by the great Rajasuya sacrifice ceremony. At that time she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes. And then this disrobing of Draupadi gets lots of paintings illustrating it. And as it was a get-back arrangement, you know the stories, get-back arrangement by Karna, because he wasn't permitted in the competition to gain Draupadi's hand. So when they lost, the Pandavas lost in a mixed, fixed game of dice, and they lost their wife, they lost their kingdom, they lost their weapons, they lost everything. Then Karna wanted to see now the property of the Kauravas, Draupadi, stripped naked. So Dushasana came forward, and he couldn't. Krishna supplied unlimited sari. We all know the story. So it was Krishna protecting Yudhisthira's wife. They're all their wives, but he's speaking to Yudhisthira. During our exile, Durvasa Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. So the intrigue with our enemies was Duryodhana knew about this Akshay Patra, the magical pot that could produce unlimited until Draupadi ate. Once Draupadi ate, that was it for the day. So Duryodhana, made a request. Please visit my cousins. Go to the forest, make sure you show up after dinner time. Because he didn't say why, but then it was a conspiracy. And when you ask, then Draupadi will supply a meal, but she won't be able to supply a meal if she's already eaten. So if you come late in the day and she's already eaten, then the pot can't produce the meal. Anyway, it was a trick. So when, sure enough, Durvasa Muni appeared after dinner time and she had already eaten, she's in big trouble. So she called Krishna. Krishna came. What's the problem? She explained the problem. And Krishna said, let me see the pot. You know the story. And he looked inside the pot, and sure enough, there was a little bit of spinach. Yummy spinach, right? Stuck to the side of the pot. And he reached in and took a little spinach, and by his taking the spinach, he was satisfied. Not only he was satisfied, but of course there's different numbers. Sometimes it's 10,000 disciples, sometimes it's 60,000 disciples. There's different versions. But because Durvasa Muni had gone to the river to take his bath before taking his evening meal, at that time, Krishna, simply by accepting remnants of food, saved us. So Draupadi is a darker complexioned personality, as is Krishna. So he took some spinach from the side of the pot, And when he took some spinach from the side of the pot, Durvasa Muni was full, so he didn't come back because he was full just from Krishna taking a little leafy spinach. By accepting food thus, the assembly of munis, while bathing in the river, felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were all also satisfied. So he, Arjuna, is remembering the special favors. And another celebrated special favor was at the request, we've heard much of this already, this is different images. At the request of Yudhisthira, who was advised specifically by Vyasadeva, there's going to be a battle, and Arjuna has this benediction that he is going to acquire in his lifetime celestial weapons. Now's the time. Here's a mantra, and he can travel great distances at the right time. You give him this mantra, that he gave the mantra to Yudhisthira, and after some time, Yudhisthira gave it to Arjuna, and Arjuna went to the North Country and did triple severe austerities, and it resulted in his body becoming so hot that the demigods were uncomfortable. The demigods went and complained to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva said, no problem, I'll take care of it. And the result was a fight between a disguised Shiva, who took the form of a hunter, and a battle between the hunter and Arjuna, and battle. Then Arjuna realized, wait a minute, this isn't just a hunter. Then he fashioned a murti of Lord Shiva and offered flowers upon the murti of Lord Shiva, and then Shiva changed from the hunter to Lord Shiva. It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God, Lord Shiva, and his wife, the daughter of Mount Himalaya. So the purpose was to get weapons, and here's Lord Shiva giving his Pashupat weapon, spoken of right in this chapter 15 of the Bhagavatam. And he not only gave his weapon, but he made an arrangement where Arjuna could visit to the heavenly planets and get other weapons. So Arjuna is a celebrated statement in the Bhagavatam. I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half-elevated seat. Exactly what a half-elevated seat is, I don't know. I'm making these disclaimers because my experience is different audiences ask these, very important questions like, what's a half-elevated seat? The answer is, I don't know. But he attained heaven, and when he attained heaven, he was honored by the demigods. And not only that, he honored by the demigods, they had him stay for some time. He came for weapons, and they knew why he came. And they gave him this weapon, that weapon. There's a whole list of weapons that he was given. And they also had some service. Now, this is a Mahabharata description of what happened. I'm not going to read it all, but it's the austerities that he underwent that made his body like fire, and the demigods were in difficulty. They went to Lord Shiva, and they asked, Shiva did what Shiva did, and so forth. There's Arjuna standing on one leg with his arms raised and doing the Hiranyakashipu program. Lord Shiva assumed the form of a hunter, and the hunter and Arjuna were having a conflict over this wild boar that had come. They were confronting one another. There's the wild boar, you saw this before. And then, no, I killed the boar, no, I killed the boar. And they had some further conflict and battle. And Arjuna had many weapons and thousands of arrows fired at Shiva, who was in this disguise of a hunter. And they had no effect, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Finally, Lord Shiva gives him his arrow. So now he's with the demigods in the celestial realm, and they had a problem. There's always a problem. Even in heaven, there's a problem. Even in heaven, there's a problem. So the problem was there was a demon who was the leader of 10,000 other demons, and their business was disrupting yajnas meant to make offerings to the demigods. And the demigods had a problem with this person. And so they asked Arjuna, can you deal with this demon? So here's the name of the demon. Navata Kavacha. So Indra gave his chariot and his chariot driver to Arjuna. I mean, Indra needs help. It's his son. He sent his son because Arjuna is like really good. And when I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradev, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with a Gandiva bow, to kill the demon Navata Kavacha. So there's the chariot up there, driven by Matali, the chariot driver of Indra, and he killed the demon and his so many other associates, and the demigods were greatly relieved. Now these demons, by the way, they're sons of Kashyapa. Now Kashyapa had different wives, but one of those wives had a demoniac propensity, and the sons were also. The business was disrupting yajnas performed by the sages for the benefit of the demigods. So he was creating a big problem. And Arjuna was the solution to that problem. O king, speaking to Yudhishthira, descendant of Ajamedha, they're both descendants of Ajamedha. At the present moment, I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. Then he mentions other incidents. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. Because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it, and only by his grace was I able to regain cows of King Virat, and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance. So there was an idea after this, what was his name? Kichika? The brother, what was his name? Huh? Kichika. So Bhima thrashed him. And word spread, hey, anyone that can do this, it's got to be Bhima. That's their incognito year, and if they're found, they got to do another 12 years. So let's be smart. Let's send a band of our soldiers to go kidnap some cows from Virat's kingdom. So the cows were kidnapped. And Arjuna was requested to regain the cows. And he's remembering this event, and so he, Arjuna, along with the son of Virat, together they went, just the two of them, defeated the entire army and got back the cows. Now this is a painting meant to illustrate during this period of time when he was in the kingdom of Virat, he was into disguise. As a dance teacher disguise. So that's Arjuna in a dance teacher disguise. What do you think? You ever seen Arjuna look like this before? Do you know about the pastime? I'm looking at you. Do you know about the pastime? Arjuna was a dance teacher. You know the story? A little bit. Who was his main student? The daughter of the king. Right? Yeah. And when King Virat realized, wait a minute, this isn't just a dance teacher. This is Arjuna. So the name he was going by was Brinhala. So when the king said, look, you're not a dance teacher, you're Arjuna. Please accept my daughter as your wife. The king was like making this recommendation to Arjuna. And Arjuna said, I have a son that's the age of your daughter. So, because your daughter's really young, and you know, I'm much older. See, I got a son your daughter's age. So why don't you have her marry my son? So sure. And you know the name of that young man who was Arjuna's son? Yes, you do. Abhimanyu? Ah, yeah, Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu was young, but marriages in Vedic time, you know, they were a little earlier sometimes. So Abhimanyu married Uttara, the daughter of a king. And then later, Abhimanyu got killed in the Kurukshetra battle when he was just 16 years old. So anyway, there's Brinhala. Nice illustration. And the soldiers in the back, that's the Kauravas, that just two. One of the sons of the king and Arjuna, because Arjuna dressed like a dance teacher. It was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone. This is the Kurukshetra battle. In the battlefield, withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya. These are powerful warriors. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Lord Sri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. He's like bubbling over with enthusiasm about the impossible was a regular thing for Krishna. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bharishrava, Susharma, Shalya, Jayadrath, Balika. Remember Balika? We showed this picture of Balika, the oldest member of the Kuru dynasty that fought on the side of Duryodhana. All directed their invincible weapons against me, but by his grace, Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, this is right in Canto 1, Chapter 15, his glorification. He's thinking of Prahlad. Prahlad Maharaj, the supreme devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him. And this is a little illustration. You've seen this one before. This is the head of Jayadrath going flying through the air as Arjuna killed Jayadrath, and the head of Jayadrath landed on the lap of his father because there was a benediction. whoever causes the head of Jayadratha to fall, their head to the ground, their head will crack in 7 pieces. So that's what happened to his father. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. You can see in the painting or this illustration, there's some warriors up on horses up there. But, he's such a person, he's concerned about his horses. And he stopped his chariot to give water for his horses. It was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best of men to attain salvation. So this is what Arjuna did, was he brought them to a place, and with his Gandiva bow he shot an arrow in the ground, and water came out of the ground. And when the water came out of the ground, the horses could get some water. And the soldiers riding up there on the hill up there, they're leaving him alone so he can water his horses. And here's another older artistic drawing. He had so many arrows that he was impenetrable to even attack him. So this is the end of that little section. And I'm not doing so well with time, but in the next section, he's having remembered all these things that Krishna gave him strength and ability, and he's not taking credit for any of it. He's understanding Krishna, his kindness, his affection for his devotee, me. O king, his joking and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Pritha, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty, and all such heartinesses are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. So it's conflict of emotions, like meeting and separation simultaneously. He's being torn by his emotional remembrances of Krishna. Generally, both of us used to live together, sleep together, sit and loiter together, and at the time of advertising ourselves for acts of chivalry, sometimes if there were any irregularity, I used to reproach him, saying, "My friend, you're very truthful." They look like they're having a nice time. Krishna's got a very special dhoti on, doesn't he? Never seen a dhoti like that on Krishna. He always has this yellow dhoti. The artist got a little carried away with what to do. And sometimes Krishna would scold him, and sometimes, and their friendship knew no limit. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the Supreme Soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, accusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son. And then comes the sadness again. "Oh, Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence, I have been defeated by a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of the wives of Krishna." So he's come back to Hastinapur and reporting to his brother, devastation has happened. Krishna has left. And when Krishna left, there was this instruction that I'm supposed to take all of his 16,108 wives over here to the central part of India for their safety and protection. But when I was doing that, there was some cows, and I was unable to protect the cow infidel cowherd men were attacking the queens, and I couldn't repel them. After all I did on the Kurukshetra battle, like, what happened? Krishna left, and everything was gone. So there's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to the rescue, who gives a very nice explanation of the question, why was Arjuna unable? One answer, Krishna, the power of Arjuna was withdrawn. But why was the power of Arjuna withdrawn? How could mundane cowherd men touch the bodies of the wives of Lord Krishna, who were under the protection of Arjuna? It's a good question. Vishwanath Chakravarti to the rescue. He refers to, in case you have the Stump the Swami question tossed your way one day, now you'll have the answer. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's answer. From Vishnu Purana and Brahma Purana, it says that once upon a time, these ladies, there were ladies of heaven, and the ladies of heaven pleased Ashtavakra Muni by their service, and the Muni blessed them, that they would have the personality of Godhead as their husband. But they couldn't control themselves. They saw, look at this fellow, and they were laughing. And when he saw that they were laughing at him, he became angry and cursed them. You may become the queens of the personality of Godhead, but you're going to be kidnapped by rogues, even if they were get the Lord as their husband. And they thought, uh-oh, we've offended Ashtavakra Muni. So they appealed to him. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur from these two sources, Vishnu Purana and Brahma Purana. So they understood, uh-oh, we're in trouble. So they tried to appease him and apologized and, did what good ladies will do sometimes. And he was pacified. And then when he was pacified, he indicated they would regain their husband, even after being robbed by rogues. And so Krishna, knowing the words of the Brahmana, Krishna himself appeared as the rogues. Have you heard that one before? You've heard that one before. That's a new one for me. But, it's in the Puranas. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur knows the Puranas. And for that reason, Arjuna was unable, because it was Krishna who was the rogues. Very reasonable to uphold the words of a Brahmana. I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot, drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjuna to whom all kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, had become null and void. No, he's feeling in his heart, and then, he's, anything that he did as service is taken. He's smashed. It's exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on a barren land. He's very sad. Before his respected elder brother. O king, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas. As a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice, and fought amongst themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. All but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. So I'm used to questions like, who are those 4 or 5 that were left? Like, that's what's really important out of the whole message, right? What's the names of those 4 or 5? But, some people like that. So I did a little research and I found the answer. Yuyutsu, Kritavarma, Ashvatthama, and Kripa. I'll say the names again for those of you that like these details. Yuyutsu, Kritavarma, Ashvatthama, and Kripa. That's 4 names. It says 4 or 5, but it's 4 names. At least that's what I could find. And factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, personality, Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another. So that's the fratricidal war. Now, another picture of what you see in the painting is Krishna. The pastimes of Krishna were ending, and he was making arrangements for A and B, according to this section of the Bhagavatam and commentaries. Some of the persons who were in this assembly were eternal associates, and they were given the opportunity to, now Krishna's pastimes are over, to go back to the spiritual world. The second, there's some residents of the heavenly realm. They were also given the privilege to participate, and they went again to the heavenly realm because that was what they were attached to. So it was purpose driven. It wasn't just like, wildness. It was wildness, but it was purpose driven. And here's the final section that we'll be discussing. No, there's one more section. Arjuna focuses on Krishna's instructions. So what did Krishna want Arjuna to do? Who can say? What did Krishna want Arjuna to do? Go to Badrikashram and deliver his message. That was Yudhishthira. Excuse me, that was Uddhava. So what did he want Arjuna to do? O king, as in the ocean, the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger yadu to kill the weaker, and the bigger yadu the smaller. Now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the Personality of Godhead, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. These verses are very nice. I mean, those of you that are used to reading or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, just hearing these verses recited again and one more time today, it's very familiar territory. For me, it's very familiar territory, and it's like bells are ringing, and it's churning spiritual emotion just hearing these verses. Commentary, Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in critical times, all critical times. Shukadeva Goswami goes on, Sutta goes on. Thus, being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. It sounds a lot more pleasant than where it was going before. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the Personality of Godhead, but factually, this was not the case, and again he became Lord of his senses. So he's going into a deep immersion and meditation on Krishna. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the 3 modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, and he was freed from material form. That was pretty quick. but it's just a verse. It's not like... Anyway, he became immersed. So he's an eternal associate. Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna. So there's no question about his destination. And there's a little section that I don't know if we have time for. 10 after. There's a good number of verses, 12, 13 verses. Yudhisthira, upon hearing the Lord's return to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaj Yudhisthira decided to go back home, back to Godhead. But, this is a BBT painting. He doesn't take Prabhupada's words. Kshatriyas don't take sannyas. He didn't get a tridanda, but the artist depicted him that way. Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling the end of the Yadu dynasty and disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead with full attention, and thus gained release from the course of material existence. So we know where she went. Kunti. Now, the Bhagavatam description is different than Mahabharata description, but that's okay. I mean, she's an eternal associate also. So the distinction is what happened after, the sequence of events. The Mahabharata describes that Kunti, having compassion for Gandhari, she had 5 sons. They were still living. Gandhari had 100 sons, and they were all dead. Poor Gandhari. She had, compassion for Gandhari. And so when it was decided that Gandhari and Dhritarashtra would go to the North Country, to go to the Himalayas, go to Haridwar, she went with them in Mahabharata. She was the eyes of Gandhari, and Sanjaya were the eyes of Dhritarashtra. And according to Mahabharata, for 15 years, they were in the forests, engaging in austerities. And then some event happened, there was a big forest fire, and what to do. Sanjaya asked, "You please give me some instruction what to do." Dhritarashtra, Mahabharata. Dhritarashtra said, "Leave the forest at once. We're meant to depart this world, the 3 of us. You're not meant to depart this world. Leave the forest at once." That's an instruction. So Sanjaya left. And the 3 were burned in that forest fire. That's how they retired. And according to Mahabharata, they attained heaven. The Supreme Unborn Lord Sri Krishna caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. So this fratricidal war is being described. There's a Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur very sweet commentary on all of this. And the sages that Sutta was speaking to in Naimisharanya, they were unhappy. Naturally, their emotions were damaged by hearing this departure of the Yadu dynasty members and so on. So to give relief to those sages from their agony, Sutta Goswami assured them that the Lord caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to give up their bodies. It wasn't like just malice and, carrying on. So they were relieved to hear that this was the will of the Lord and so forth. The Supreme Lord relinquished the body. No, this is Bhagavatam explanation. He didn't have a spiritual body to be relinquished. He didn't have a material body to be relinquished. But rather the manifestation of his pastimes was withdrawn. Just like a magician, he relinquishes one body and accepts different ones, like the fish incarnation and others. When the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from that very day, Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with a poor fund of knowledge. We're almost done. Maharaj Yudhisthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home and dressed accordingly. So his royal attire was no longer in the mendicant attire is what he adopted. Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapur, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the seas, that means the world. He then posted Vajra, the son of Aniruddha, or Krishna's grandson Aniruddha, at Mathura as the king of Shurasena. So Shurasena is the name of a person, but also the place became known as the kingdom of Shurasena. So Vajra was given that title. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhisthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed in himself the fire for quitting his household life. And there's more text. After Maharaj Yudhisthira dressed himself in torn clothing, gave up eating all solid foods, voluntarily became dumb, and let his hair hang loose. All this combined to make him look like an urchin or madman with no occupation. He did not depend on his brothers for anything, and just like a deaf man, he heard nothing. He then started towards the north, treading the path accepted by his forefathers and great men to devote himself completely to the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he lived in that way wherever he went. And there's some remaining verses, and we're out of time, so I'm going to end. Here's what there's the end, but here's Draupadi, the Pandavas, Vidura, they all follow their leader, Yudhisthira. They, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, they had their separate arrangements, and one by one they did their separate things. They're dependent upon the personality of Godhead. They work together in fraternity and in marriage, but they're dependent upon the personality of Godhead. That's the Bhagavatam's depiction. So this class was a little different. The other, mainly it's just reading verses from the chapter. But, the Himalayas, the foothills of the Himalayas, and the Himalayas has a role in along the theme of the time we've been spending together here. So it's a nice chapter, nice instruction. Let's see if there's some discussion. We have 13 minutes. I see your hand. Yeah, he's coming with the microphone.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the lecture. I have doubt, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Yudhisthira was roaming in search of Godhead. But there's another pastime where all the Pandavas, their goal is to go to heaven.
They went? Where?
Their goal is to go to heaven.
Yeah, that's Mahabharata. This is the Bhagavatam.
Oh,
3 times today I mentioned the narrations are different. The destinations are also different according to the different text. There's an emphasis on the Bhagavatam that's not identical with Mahabharata. Okay?
yeah. Yeah, Maharaj. That clears one doubt because I always had a doubt after hearing Bhagavad Gita why they choose heaven instead of going back to Godhead. So I think Bhagavatam mentions the same thing. Thank you.
Graduate and postgraduate. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Do your children know these stories? Do you know these stories? Kind of? A little bit. Good stories, yeah? What's good about good story? What's good about these good stories is Krishna's at the center. Because there's lots of who done it to whom, and histories of kings and stuff, battles, but there's no Krishna, and the Krishna element makes it. By hearing Krishna, 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 it draws one's attention, besides the worldly interactions, it draws one's attention towards virtue, and ultimately, what's the purpose of all of this? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of hearing nice stories? Or intrigue, or combat, or what's the purpose? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm trying to frame my question. Like Arjuna, how he felt very helpless without presence of Krishna. But it just was reminding me of staying or feeling the empowerment of presence of the strength getting from the blessings of my guru and all devotees all the time. So my question is how to stay empowered or strong all the time with presence. I get it, but even in the absence or when I'm away from devotees, especially like in a different places, physically present or not, how to stay strong all the time. This question came to me because sometimes when I go through, like when I feel low or certain situations when I feel lonely, I remind myself about, oh, I'm not alone. I have this wonderful Guru Parampara and my Prabhupada and all this in my life. So I try to think and then try to get some strength from it. But how do I stay myself strong all the time?
Well, it depends what you mean strong. Strong doesn't, as we know from, there's elevated devotees, and we're not elevated devotees, but you look at the lives of elevated devotees, and is Arjuna showing us symptoms of weakness, or is he showing us symptoms of love? And if you have symptoms of love, there's going to be different emotions. In pure love, in Krishna Prema. So, get ready for a ride. So, to remain strong is not necessarily to always feel, a worldly sense of happiness and no unhappiness. And that's strong. That's a material conception, a misconception. And strong is where, regardless of the circumstance, the connection with Krishna is palpable. And so the palpable with diversity of emotion. And that just as you become a little more experienced and a little more purified, both, then you'll understand what strong means. That the connection is palpable. You can feel it. Even when the pendulum swings this way and that way, the palpable connection with the Supreme is there. Or, my destination, my true shelter. Here we are in Houston, Texas, and devotees that have been here for years and years and years, or been disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj for years and years, he's not physically present anymore. So what's the remain always strong for those devotees? Ask them or you observe them, and is it possible to remain so? And disciples of Prabhupada that remain very, very, strong. So many years have passed, and where's that source of strength? There's shelter. There's a real connection, and it's not cosmetic. It's not materially, because materials keeps changing, but it doesn't change. So that a spiritual connection. So your question boils down to how do you get a spiritual connection, so you can stay spiritually strong. Don't expect it to look like, it's always and this upswing thing. I'm always, with a smile on my, smile is fine. I know some devotees that have very serious demeanor, but when you get to know them inside, they're very soft. They're very sweet. But their external demeanors doesn't look like that. I won't name some names, but there's some people that are like that. So when there's a spiritual connection, the spiritual connection begins. It's a sadhu sangha. Answer to the how-to question is the answer through sadhu sangha. And we have 4 minutes left. Anyone else? I thought so.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the class. I have 2 comments, Maharaj, no questions.
No question? Go ahead, 2 comments.
Listening to all the pastimes that you've been sharing, the disappearance of all these personalities seem very bewildering. It's not like ordinary people who leave their body. It reminds me of the verse that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, where it says, Janma karma.
You're mumbling. That's okay, you don't have to say it again. Then the other part of what you want to share?
The other part is the section where Arjuna recollects all the favors.
It's very sweet.
It reminded me of how Queen Kunti also recollects all the favors by Krishna. Of course, she has a broader list because she's seeing all her sons, but this is more from the perspective of Arjuna. On his one-to-one relation.
Well, that's just, in a section.
Yes.
Because he's with Yudhisthira, Krishna just left. So it's naturally very focused.
And brings back to the frame of how he...
How to?
And there's no question, in the sense that how he progresses from separation to expressing gratitude.
It's the movements of rasa, which are like the movements of the waves of a river. You've heard me say this many times. So, river is water, and sometimes this little piece of water is up here. And sometimes the same piece of water downstream a little bit is down there. It's the same water with the movements of the waves of the river. And when you're situated in a rasa of relationship with Krishna, it's whoever Krishna wants, that's what it is. Whether it's this or that or the others, Krishna's right at the very center. And the emotion moves. Rasa moves, taste moves. And sometimes it looks like nice, and sometimes it looks like not nice, painful, separation, sorrow. But it's ecstasy. That's a transcendental depiction, but it's true. I'm going to end.
Thank you, man.
So we'll see you all, maybe, some of you, most of you, tomorrow. We have our final day. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So for Prasadam